No? Yeah. I live in fear of the mic not working. I was surprised the other day when Pastor Brian asked me to share my story because I told him yesterday that I'm not a saint. And he says, actually, you are a saint. Okay, well, I'm not a finished work yet. So I didn't feel I had a whole lot to say, but then he said that he was speaking on rejection. And I knew that I'd struggle with that and that maybe I do have a word for you. I'm Dave Wilkins, and I'm not so unique. My story isn't. I was born in a family. I had 3 brothers, no sisters. I grew up thinking that girls were perfect little creatures. When I reached my teen years, I struggled with shyness, and I often wouldn't take part in social events because I was shy. No, it's because I was afraid. That's the word. Then I discovered beer. If I could get some beer in me, I could be that person I wanted to be. And the feelings of inadequacy weren't there. That way I'd have the nerve to act the way I wanted to act. My teen years were very difficult. A lot of that was self-inflicted, but I didn't know how to be any different. My girlfriend and I became sexually active, and that resulted in a pregnancy. And we were married when I was 18 and she was 17. And we struggled for 12 years in a marriage that was built on little except the care and providing for 2 children. I still ran and hid when the pressure became too great. I had my friend beer. Because of our immaturity and self-centeredness, because of that, our marriage had a lot of flaws. I've lost my place. Our marriage became destructive and unhealthy. We had lots of fights. I never felt that I was good enough, and I was often reminded by her that I wasn't. Reward or failure, that's what it became. And all this was played out before an audience of 2. I didn't know how to fix things. When it ended, it felt like life was over. I didn't believe that I could live without her. I idolized her. Even though it was a terrible relationship, I was desperate to not have it end. It wasn't something that she eased on me. It was sudden. I was totally rejected and told to get out of her life now. I was kicked to the curb. I tried making deals with God, and I was angry at God, and I ranted and raved at him. And I blamed God. If only he would bring her back. No deal. I was faced with just myself and my problems, and I agonized over how my life had turned out. It wasn't joyful. As a matter of fact, it was miserable. So I drank more and more often. Even though I had been raised to know about Jesus as a child, for 32 years I never did anything with that knowledge. When my marriage failed, I hit bottom. I had all those emotions going on, anxiety, anger, fear, loneliness, along with the alcohol and the behavioral problems. So most of my life at that point was spent in bitterness and resentment because of the rejection I was trying to deal with. Thankfully, I was invited by my brother to his church. I resisted that as long as I could. And I told him, I said, okay, one time and you get off my back. Wow, was I surprised. That little church was full of warmth, and they taught the love and forgiveness of Jesus. I kept going back. Because of my loneliness, I couldn't get enough of the warmth and the love that these new Christian friends of mine were pouring out on me. It was like water on a thirsty tongue. Then I was faced with a decision. I needed the love of God, and even though I had walked away from it in my younger days, I knew I needed it, and I also knew I didn't deserve it. I decided to let Jesus take over the control of my life and take care of the mess that it had become. That was 24 years ago. The morning that I said yes to Jesus, the youth pastor was filling in for the senior pastor who was called away to a family event, a tragedy. And he was speaking on a centurion who said to Jesus, "I'm not worthy." And I said, "Jesus, I'm not worthy." But he said to both of us that he saw us differently, that we did have value. That morning I said yes to the offer of love and forgiveness and started a new way of life. I was able to begin to live free of the traps that I'd been falling into. I found new hope and a new way to deal with the problems I had. I still smoked, and I had an occasional run-in with alcohol, but I soon lost any need for it, and I was being changed. And then I realized this morning when we were singing that song, "You give and take away." I now live a lot different than I once did, but I still have to be on my toes because of the weakness, the areas that I'm weak in. I can't let the enemy have a place there because his intention is to destroy. I rarely struggle now with rejection. I find joy and peace in most all the things I do. I met and married a wonderful Christian lady 12 years ago, and I find that God has provided me a true helpmate in my wife, Karen. She not only completes me in the ways that only a friend and companion can, but she keeps me accountable in my areas of weakness. And I still have lots of those. Together we have 7 children, all married to wonderful spouses, and we have 12 grandchildren in our blended family. It's great. I mean, it's great. I now don't see my former wife as an agent of Satan, but as a child of God. I'm so happy to be part of a church family like ORBC, where I can help folks that are struggling like I was. I never dreamed that God would use me in some of the areas he's used me in. You know, even this morning as I'm doing this, we're getting ready to go to Kenya and share with the folks over there some of this great things that we have to offer. What a good deal I got from God. He fixed the mess that my life was in, and he gives me happiness. And as you go out, if you look on the right, it says God changes lives. He changed mine. Maybe he can change yours.
Amen.